Welcome to the Software Report, a leading information source on software companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Bryan Murphy, CEO of Smartling, an AI translation platform built to help organizations translate and localize content across channels. Smartling's language AI combines AI and machine learning to automate parts of the translation workflow, integrate with existing tech stacks, and support translation quality at scale. The platform is used by hundreds of brands, including OpenAI, Apple, Disney, Shopify, Pinterest, Pepsi, and Verizon. Bryan is a three-time CEO with a background in e-commerce and SaaS leadership, including roles at eBay and as co-founder and CEO of WHI Solutions, an automotive e-commerce platform acquired by eBay in 2012. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you liked the episode, click to follow. Bryan, thanks so much for taking the time. It's great to be with you.
Of course, great to meet you.
Where I'd like to start is just to chat about Smartling, what it provides. You've been there for some time, but maybe give us a sense for the history of the company and then leading up to what it does today.
Sure. Yeah. So Smartling is an AI translation platform. Our customers are companies like OpenAI, Disney, Apple, Verizon, Pepsi, you name it, sort of like the big global companies that need to have multilingual experiences for their customers in whichever market. And we've been around for a while. I think the reason why we pick up customers like these is that, because we're able to do translation using AI, 99-100% of the process is automated. Customers are able to, on average, translate 3 times more content for 60% less cost, 6 times faster. That's the bottom line. So it's a pretty big impact on our customers' ability to go to market.
I imagine the tricky part, it's probably not tricky anymore, was like picking up on the nuances of how messaging is perceived in the native tongue. So your AI was probably able to learn that fairly quickly so that translation is seamless.
Yeah, that's one of the big unlocks. We used to do translation either with people or with machine translation. And the machine translation, was an earlier version of AI, but it was fairly kind of robotic. It was what it was. And what we've been able to do with AI is now AI is quite trainable. So what we do is we actually train, each customer gets their own custom AI translation engine, right? So we train it on translation memory, glossary, terminology, style guide, and for each individual language pair, right? So you can imagine, if you take IBM and Apple, they both have very, very different brand personalities, right? They speak differently. They have different style guides, if you want to make it technical. But then in each language is a little different, right? So US is a little more colloquial, and if you go to Germany, it's more specific, and Japan has its own style of speaking, right? And so not only are we building these custom engines that are based on their linguistic assets, but then they're able to come through in a style and tone of voice that matches their brand. And that's really, really important for marketers and for driving conversion and engagement. So at the end of the day, that's what we're after, is being able to provide our customers, what our customers are buying from us is on brand, extremely high quality, trusted content translation.
Mm-hmm. Does it go all the way to the last mile, meaning like this is the end copy that the marketers then just like publish to the site or to the app? I presume there's quality control.
Yeah, we take it even a step further. We actually automate that ingestion of content. So our customers, if they're in their CMS, or if they're using an application that's integrated via API or whatever the many, many different applications that enterprises use in their tech stack, customers actually, they build out copy, they press a button, runs into Smartling, gets translated, comes back, and then is automatically ingested back into that application. So that's what I mean by automation. It's turnkey, which is a massive time and labor savings for our customers.
And can you give us a sense for the scale of the business currently? And you can choose whatever metrics you're comfortable sharing.
Sure. To give you a sense, we have thousands of customers. We translate 8-9 billion words a year for our customers. And so we have hundreds of employees and we have thousands of translators that work within our network. So you actually asked a question like, is there a human in the loop? And so the answer is sometimes it depends on what the customer needs. So sometimes the process is 100% automated, right? And literally they press a button and instantly it's translated and published all around the world. In other cases, they have content that they want to maybe spend a little bit of extra effort on. And so we actually have what we call a human in the loop, and they're actually managing the process and reviewing the output and making any corrections that may be required.
Are there certain sectors where your solution tends to be used more than others?
Yeah, tech likes tech. So we sort of our home base is other software companies, right? So, if you look at the world's major leading software companies, they're probably customers of ours. E-commerce companies, we do a lot of business with e-commerce. We do a lot of business with healthcare. They're highly regulated global companies. Not only is translation localization important to them, but quality and governance is super important to them. So we provide all of those things. And that's one of the things that people sort of miss. They're like, hey, why don't companies just use GPT to translate stuff? Well, you can, but most of these global enterprises have a governance and regulation issue, right? So let's say I translate 5,000 word article. I'm in fintech. Let's say I'm in credit cards, MasterCard's a customer, right? Or publish this thing, translate it into 14 different languages using GPT. What did I just write? I don't know. You know what I mean? You have no idea, right? Is it right? Is it wrong? Did I just violate some law in Germany or in China or, all of those things? And so when you're dealing with global brands like this, governance and security are really paramount because it can create quite an exposure for you, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Well, on this podcast, we always like to learn about the executives. So tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe like what you had done in, prior roles and then what brought you to Smartling.
Sure. Well, I've been building software and e-commerce companies for the past 20 years or so. And I've been fortunate. I've been able to do a bunch of different things in my life. I started out sort of in venture capital, cocktail napkin to, business. And then the last several years, I've been working mostly with private equity on the kind of growth equity side. And what I always like is a big TAM, right? So a big market where there's just some inefficiency, right? There's just something that I'm like, wow, why are they doing it that way? That seems pretty old fashioned. So we actually started looking at the translation localization space, which, believe it or not, was a $30 billion global industry. That was the first time I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is a huge business. And I've always localized products and applications in e-commerce. I've done this my entire career, and I've always hated it. It was always expensive and slow and just a painful process. And so we started looking at tech in this space, and we saw what Smartling was doing. I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me there's this $30 billion industry that's predicated on a 14-day turnaround time for translation at 20 cents a word, which anyone who's done this before knows that's what it is. It's pretty brutal. So you do as little of it as possible. And here's this company, Smartling, that can do it for a fraction of the penny with instant turnaround. I'm like, wow, that's super interesting, right? And at the time, it was like, we could do that, but it wasn't as good as, human translation, right? But I'm like, okay, this is the whole coming up the curve thing, the innovator's dilemma and all that. I said, listen, this is something we can do something with. It will make it better. And the big unlock for us was AI 2-3 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden that allowed us to completely pivot and now start to begin to produce translation that was as good as a human with those same 6x faster turnaround, fraction of the cost kind of thing. And that's what's really driving exponential growth in this business right now.
So you came in with the investor in tow, or are you the investor? How did that work?
A little bit of both. Yeah. So I had a relationship with Battery Ventures up in Boston. And, we look at stuff every now and then. I've known them for 10, 12 years. And they called me up and said, hey, we're looking at this space. Would you be interested in taking a look with us? And next thing you knew, I got so excited about it. I said, not only am I going to invest, but I want to go run this business. So that's how I ended up here. And it's been a blast.
How was it like dropping into the company as the CEO? Presume maybe you've done it before. Was it a fairly seamless transition?
On a relative basis, yes. I have done this before, and anyone that's done this before knows it's really difficult to do. And so fortunately, we had a really tremendous founder, Jack Weldy, who's the founder of this company, Smartling, and he recognized what we could do and the partnership that we could develop, and it worked out great. Jack's a technical founder. I'm a go-to-market person. And so we were kind of like peanut butter and jelly and have had a lot of fun working together. So that worked out great.
Do you have some kind of maybe tools or tactics that you tend to use when you're kind of leading a company and corral an organization?
Yeah. So I have basically a 100-day plan that I've sort of developed over the last several years. And I got it from James Citrin, who wrote the book. So you're in charge now, what? Basically, I can't remember exactly the book, but I stole that a few years ago and then developed that into my own. And that's really helped. And that's really kind of breaking down your onboarding process into like 30-day segments and being super transparent in the process. And the first 30 days, you can imagine, is like really just listening, asking questions, stakeholders, customers, investors, analysts, all of that, just absorbing. And then the next 90 days, formulating your plan with your team and then executing. And then from an execution standpoint, my go-to on this, and I learned this at eBay. I had a couple of really great leaders there that really drilled this into my head. So Christopher Payne, who ran North America at eBay and then went on to DoorDash and really built that company up, really helped me understand the value of focusing on the critical few, right? So every CEO has a list of 100 things they want to do. You really got to narrow that thing down to like 3 things that you're going to do, 3 to 5 things. And then I have an operating plan that I share with the entire organization. We stand up every week and review it. So everybody in the company knows exactly what those 3 to 5 initiatives are, what the status of those are. Are you on point? Are you missing? Do you need to adjust? And that way you've got this incredible accountability within the organization and focus and transparency. And to me, those are the elements that enable us to move and grow very quickly.
And when you look at kind of where you're most focused now, where most of your effort is going towards, how much is it go to market and sales? How much of it is the product? Sounds like the product was in pretty good shape as you were kind of evaluating the company.
It was, and then AI came along and we had to completely pivot. I remember that week when ChatGPT came out, right? And woke up Saturday morning and logged in for the first time, had my cup of coffee. I can picture myself sitting there. You remember the first time you saw the Google box?
Mm-hmm.
And you used it and you're like, whoa, what just happened, right? That was the same kind of experience. You get this box, how can I help you today? Where you start typing and you're like, holy smokes. And so literally we started slacking. The entire LT kind of did the same thing on Saturday. We started slacking with each other. And by Monday, we were tearing up the playbook, right? And our organizational structure, once again, because we were experts at machine translation and machine learning as a cloud-based company, we already knew what this thing was, right? Mm-hmm. And what it could do. So we reorganized the teams, certainly reorganized the product roadmap, and just went to town. And that's been a hugely transformative moment for us.
Does ChatGPT and its brethren, does that still give you some anxiety that could continue to creep in and take market share?
Of course. I think with any software company, I think we're all worried that the software go away and it becomes, all LLMs. And the way I think about this is I think that companies that create AI applications. So if you think about so many of the innovations of the past, right, like the web, like the commercialization of the internet, right? If you remember back, there were no applications. Like there was no Shopify, there was no AWS, there was no PayPal, there was no Salesforce. You had to build all of these applications to become an e-commerce company. Mm-hmm. Now you push a button or you sign up and like, boom, all that stuff is there. You've got all these applications that are incredible to do these things. So I think that the same thing is happening right now with AI. Like right now, it's a box and I can get this box to do lots of things, but I have to work at it. I got to get it to connect to all these things, yada, yada, yada. Where I think the future is in the next kind of wave of companies that will be leveraging this foundational technology, like we did the internet, like we did cloud services, and now companies are going to do with AI, is we're going to use this new foundational technology to build purpose-built applications that do something very specific, extremely well, and extremely easily for customers. And that's going to be the value.
Mm-hmm. One thing we like to touch on is investors. And this is a unique situation because you were kind of teamed up before you came in. Typically, it's like the CEOs going out or founders going out looking for the capital. But tell us about that kind of synergy there and how Battery and maybe other investors have helped provide value beyond just the capital.
Yeah. I mean, that's typically what Battery does. And normally what would happen is I would help them develop a thesis and I would jump on the board and be an assistant, right? But this just was like unusual where the stars sort of aligned and I came in as a CEO. We didn't start out that way. It just kind of worked out that way. But normally that's exactly right. Like, so we would go, and one of the things about Battery and companies like Battery that they're very good at is pattern recognition. Yeah. And I always joke, I'm like, you guys look at 1,000 deals a year, and you might invest in 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, whatever the number is, right? Mm-hmm. Point is, when you're an operator and you're a CEO, how many companies do you look at in your lifetime? Mm-hmm. 2, 3, 4, I don't know, right? Yeah. So my point is, as an operator, we have pattern recognition as operators, right? And we know our thing. But what we don't understand, as well as the private equity folks, is sort of the broader market and the value creation levers. Mm-hmm. Because that's our job, is to create value, right, at that level. And so what we try to do, and what a good private equity firm will do, or a venture capital firm will do, is partner with the founder, partner with the management team, and help take this framework of pattern recognition and help use it to shape operations in a way that in 5 years, everyone gets a great outcome. Mm-hmm. Even with Battery today, it's like, we sit in our board meetings and strategy sessions, and I'll be talking about something and they'll be like, well, have you thought about blank, blank, blank? Because that person's got pattern recognition from 10 other deals they've been on, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. Or, like a lot of things are about, okay, I'll give you an example, the magic number, or like what, or like thinking about like, what's your growth rate projected? How much are you spending on go-to-market? You're not going to make it. Yeah. Because I've seen this, like, you're just not, it's like, it's math, you know what I mean? So I think that's where that pressure testing that comes in from that experience and that pattern recognition is extremely beneficial to founders, no matter how much experience they have.
Mm-hmm. Last 2 questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
Oh, yeah. I've been fortunate to have a few, but certainly one of them, George Conrades, he was the CEO of Akamai, president of IBM, and sits on the board of Cardinal, Oracle, Harley-Davidson. It was my mentor since forever. And I've been fortunate enough to have him in my life and sort of like giving me counsel, whether I wanted to hear it or not. But I think every person needs someone with experience that's a truth teller and can kind of let you know when you're heading down the right path or the wrong path. So I've been fortunate to have some really strong mentors in my life.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
I've been involved with Make-A-Wish. That's been a really strong passion of mine. And, I would probably say that's the number one.
Excellent. Well, Bryan, I want to thank you again for taking the time. It's been a great conversation.
Great. I really appreciate the chance to talk with you.